Power isn't always where it looks like it is. Sometimes the most dangerous person in a group isn't the boss, it's the one who whispers.
That's the genius of Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Robert Greene is telling us, if you want to break a system, don't fight the crowd. Isolate the influence.
Because influence doesn't always wear a crown. It doesn't always sit at the head of the table. Often, it hides in loyalty, in charisma, in proximity to others' emotions.
Exactly. The shepherd is the one quietly shaping direction. They create unity or division. And if that person is toxic, manipulative, or power-hungry, the entire group becomes infected.
And here's the trap. Most people attack symptoms, the gossip, the resistance, the tension. But those are just ripples. The source is often just one person.
Which is why Greene says don't waste energy disciplining the group. Don't argue with every voice. Find the source. Remove the shepherd.
And when you do, the dynamic collapses, the confusion clears, loyalty dissolves. It's almost surgical. The structure loses its glue.
You see this in politics, in teams, in families. One person stirs the pot, creates factions, turns people subtly against leadership, and as long as they're in the room stays unstable.
And sometimes they're not even loud. They might never directly challenge authority. They undermine with suggestion. They build quiet alliances that erode trust slowly.
That's what makes them dangerous and hard to detect, because they often present as loyal, supportive, even harmless.
But the damage they do, it spreads. It's cultural. It becomes embedded in how the group functions. And no policy fixes that, only removal.
And here's the key. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to humiliate the shepherd. Just create distance, reassign, extract them from influence.
And once they're gone, you'll notice something powerful. The group stabilizes almost overnight. The tension lifts. People stop choosing sides. They recalibrate.
What's dangerous about the shepherd figure is that they often don't look like a threat. They're not overtly aggressive. In fact, they usually blend in. That's what makes them effective.
Exactly. It's not their title that gives them power. It's their relationships, their ability to shape perception. They plant ideas, stir doubts, build private alliances, all beneath the surface.
And sometimes they're charming. Charisma is their currency. They don't lead through force. They lead through emotional gravity. People want to be near them, agree with them, impress them.
That's why calling them out rarely works. If you attack them directly, you look insecure or paranoid, because on the surface, they're just being themselves.
Which makes your move look personal. And if you act too soon, without clarity, you lose the room. The sheep don't scatter, they turn on you.
So the real challenge of this law is timing. You have to identify the shepherd quietly, confirm the pattern, notice who always seems to be at the center of every disruption.
Ask, who do people run to when there's conflict? Who never takes sides, but somehow everyone quotes them?
And even more telling, who are people afraid to contradict? That fear tells you where the power actually lives, even if it's unofficial.
Once you know who the shepherd is, the next step isn't war, it's separation. Subtle, strategic. You don't accuse, you neutralize.
Exactly. You shift the structure. You limit their access to the group. You create space between them and the people they influence.
Because once the emotional chain breaks, once their voice is no longer in every ear, the system starts to detox.
And this is what makes Law 42 so precise. It's not about aggression. It's about understanding where power lives and then rerouting the current.
The irony? The shepherd rarely sees it coming because they're used to manipulating without being named. They don't believe anyone's watching them closely.
And that's your advantage. Because while they're focused on the sheep, you're focused on them.
Let's bring this into everyday life. Think about a workplace. There's tension in the team, constant drama, lack of alignment. Management tries training, policies, team building. Nothing works.
Because they're treating the symptoms. The real cause is usually a single person behind the curtain, not the loudest, often the smartest. The one people respect just enough to follow in silence.
Exactly. They don't break rules, they bend culture. They make cynicism acceptable. They roll their eyes when no one's watching. They erode trust in leadership, one conversation at a time.
And the most dangerous part? They don't even need to speak often. Their presence shapes behavior. Their approval or disapproval becomes the group's emotional weather.
I've seen teams held hostage by one person's energy. If that person's in a good mood, the day flows. If they're withdrawn or irritated, everyone tenses. That's not leadership, that's emotional control.
And Law 42 says, don't negotiate with that dynamic. Don't try to win them over. You remove them from the center, or you lose the group.
And this doesn't just happen at work. Families have this dynamic too. One sibling, one parent, one grandparent, whose opinion governs the entire emotional atmosphere.
Everyone waits for their signal. Their reaction determines what's allowed to be said, who feels safe to speak, what issues stay buried.
And when someone finally challenges them, even gently, the system shakes, not because it's wrong, but because everyone's trained to orbit around that shepherd.
That's why so many power structures remain unchallenged. The shepherd hides behind tradition, respectability, or perceived victimhood. Challenging them feels wrong, even when it's necessary.
So again, precision. Law 42 isn't about a personal vendetta. It's about identifying the emotional axis of dysfunction and realigning the group.
And often, once that person steps back or is moved aside, the change is immediate. Peace returns, creativity flows, people remember their roles without fear.
Because the sheep never wanted conflict, they just followed the strongest signal. Once that signal fades, they recalibrate quickly.
So if it's that clear, if one person holds that much sway, why is it so hard to act? Why do people tolerate it for so long?
Because power cloaked in familiarity feels safe. The shepherd is often someone people like or fear or have known for years. That emotional history makes it hard to detach.
And there's guilt. They've always been here. They've done a lot for us. Maybe we're overreacting. That's how influence survives, under the disguise of loyalty.
Exactly. Power often hides in relationships. It becomes personal. So even when the impact is toxic, calling it out feels like betrayal.
That's the trap. The shepherd never asks for power. They never claim it openly, but they hold it, subtly, completely, because no one's willing to name it.
And as long as they remain unnamed, they remain untouchable. The group protects them, defends them, even when everyone privately senses the damage.
We've all seen this. The office where everyone knows who the problem is, but no one wants to start drama, so dysfunction becomes normalized.
Or the family where one person dictates what can be talked about, how holidays happen, what's acceptable, and nobody confronts it because that's just how they are. Law 42 cuts through all that. It says stop managing around the problem, stop walking on eggshells. If the structure is warped, remove what's warping it.
And sometimes that takes more than a tactical move. It takes emotional courage, because you might lose approval, comfort, even relationships. But you gain clarity, freedom, real leadership, because after you strike the shepherd, the system doesn't just collapse, it resets.
And that's the beauty of this law. It's not about destruction, it's about transformation. It's about clearing the field so something healthier can grow.
That's why Greene frames it as a strategy, not a punishment. You're not acting out of revenge, you're acting to restore equilibrium.
Because as long as the wrong person holds influence, the right structures can't rise. Power flows around them, not through the system, and that stagnates everything.
One thing we need to emphasize, Law 42 isn't about power plays for ego. It's not about eliminating people who challenge you. It's about targeting disruptive influence, not disagreement.
Exactly. Healthy dissent isn't the enemy. In fact, real leaders invite it. But when dissent becomes manipulation, when it hijacks the emotional tone of the group, then you're no longer dealing with opinion, you're dealing with control.
That's the line. When someone's presence consistently causes confusion, fear, division, and they never take accountability, it's not just personality, it's a pattern.
And leaders have to learn how to read patterns, not just events.
Don't wait for a dramatic explosion. Look at who constantly centers conflict around themselves.
Also, don't confuse competence with influence. Just because someone's good at what they do doesn't mean they're good for the group. Sometimes the most skilled person is the most destabilizing.
That's tough to face, because you want to believe value equals virtue, but power isn't always loud. It's relational, emotional, and people can weaponize competence to gain loyalty and push their own agenda.
So when Greene says strike, he doesn't mean destroy, he means remove strategically, reorganize in a way that dissolves their grip without creating new resentment.
That might mean promoting someone else to shift group loyalty, or physically separating them from their usual allies. It could even mean changing the structure entirely.
But here's what matters. The decision has to come from clarity, not emotion. You don't act because you're irritated. You act because the group can't function while this person controls the undercurrent.
And once the shift is made, if done right, the silence is immediate. That weight, that fog, that emotional resistance, it lifts almost instantly.
It's like removing a frequency that everyone had unconsciously tuned into. Once it's gone, people remember how to think for themselves again.
And that's when you, as a leader, step in. Not to fill the void, but to recalibrate the culture, to reintroduce clarity, unity, momentum.
Because leadership isn't about being the loudest, it's about creating the conditions where alignment happens naturally, without coercion. So let's bring it back to the core. Influence that operates in the shadows is the most dangerous kind, not because it's evil, but because it's invisible.
And Law 42 gives you the lens to see it, not to become paranoid, not to turn on your people, but to lead with awareness, to understand that not every problem is systemic, sometimes it's personal, in disguise.
We tend to overcomplicate power dynamics, but often all it takes is removing one voice from the equation, and suddenly everything clicks.
And yet, most leaders avoid it because it feels confrontational, risky, even unkind. But what's more cruel, to act or to let a group suffer indefinitely?
That's the ethical side of this law. It's not about domination, it's about protecting culture, about ensuring that the group doesn't revolve around hidden egos, but shared vision.
So when you sense chaos, disconnection, or passive resistance, pause. Ask yourself, is this dysfunction coming from many or from one?
And if it's one, don't waste energy managing reactions. Strike the shepherd, not with rage, with strategy, with precision.
Because once they're gone, the group doesn't just breathe, they realign. People aren't sheep by nature, they just follow what feels like safety.
And when that safety is poisoned by someone who thrives in confusion, the only remedy is clarity. And clarity sometimes means separation.
It's one of the most counterintuitive truths of leadership. Harmony doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from removing the one who keeps harmony impossible.
Next week, we step into the realm of timing and emotional control with Law 43, work on the hearts and minds of others.
It's a shift from removal to influence, from identifying threats to winning allies, not with manipulation, but with strategic empathy.
But for now, remember, when you feel the system slipping, don't chase every ripple. Find the shepherd, quietly, and move them.
Because once they're gone, the current changes, and the rest takes care of itself.